Yes, we are live now. Please start.
Alrighty, there we go. I have been muted. So, alright, I am Rajushi Banerjee. Afternoon, everyone. I am the TA for the course English Literature of the Romantic Period, and taken by Professor Pramod Nayar. And I just wanted to conduct this session. Like a very quick session, just to clarify some doubts or concerns regarding the exam that you will be having coming Sunday. And mostly going over the pattern of the exam, I have seen some questions already posted regarding what the format of the exams will be. First of all, go to the course website, and there is an announcement already posted with a detailed breakup of the three sections of the question paper, which we will go on quickly today right here. Also, there are some questions on the discussion forum. I don't know how many of you have been taking a look at the discussion forum at all. If you have any questions, you can post it there. As far as the logistics go, I won't be able to answer too many of them. There's more or less about the course content itself. So if you have questions regarding how to sign up, where to register, and all those things, which I have been seeing, some questions have been coming in, just post it on the discussion forum, and someone will definitely get back to you, and as soon as possible. All right, so there we go. If you can all hear me, could you just give me a thumbs up or something like that, so we know we are all on page? All right, I see quite a number of you. All right, so I am audible. Okay, so here's the thing. If you have any questions, you are most welcome to put it on the chat, or just interrupt me, unmute yourself and ask. So that there is an interaction. That's what this session is about. There is not very much I have to say which is not already on the course outlines anyway. So if you have any question, the entire point of this session is to clarify doubts. So if you have any questions, do ask me. If you're uncomfortable unmuting yourself, just ask me on the chat. I will be keeping a tab on that. All right. Firstly, yeah, before I go into the three sections of the question paper that you'll see coming Sunday, is there any pressing questions right away? Okay, I see a question about the long essay type question. All right, we will get there. Is there anything else right away that we need to clarify? Unless you ask questions, I won't be knowing what your doubts are, right? And evidently there should be some doubts before the exam. No? All right, so here we go.
Sir,
Uh, yeah,
sir,
go ahead.
सर लॉन्ग आंसर क्वेश्चंस और शॉर्ट नोट्स मतलब कैसे आएंगे एमसीक्यू से था ना एग्जाम के
Sorry, could you just say that again?
सर लॉन्ग आंसर क्वेश्चन और शॉर्ट आंसर क्वेश्चंस मतलब कैसे लिखने ऑनलाइन एग्जाम है ना कंप्यूटर पे
All right, we'll get to that. All right, that's a good question, actually. Okay, thanks for that. Yes, about the word count. Yes, I have seen this question on, I think you had submitted um, a question on the form that was circulated as well. Yes, there will be word counts, and as far as I know, there will be a maximum word cap. So we will get into that. Okay, so here we go. So there will be three sections of the question paper. Okay, the first section, there will be 10 multiple choice questions with 4 options each to choose from. Okay, so all the 10 questions will be mandatory. they will be more or less of the same type that you have been seeing in your weekly quizzes. All right, 10 questions. Okay, there will be at least one comprehension question where there will be like one prompt or one painting given, and you will have to answer 2 or 3 questions there. And there will be 7 or 8 other questions which will be like standalone questions. All right, so this is the multiple choice questions. Okay, so 2 marks for each of the questions. So 10 into 2, 20 marks goes for your first section. All right, is that clear? If not, do interrupt me and ask for clarification, because this is very, very important. So there are 10 questions, 10 multiple choice questions, 2 marks each, and each question will have 4 options. You have to choose the correct answer. All right, what to expect in these? There will be some recall questions, number 1, which will be at least one question will be there from the quizzes that you have already taken. So for your last minute revisions, not only the lectures, but also go through the quizzes and see, even if you haven't correctly answered certain things, know what the correct answer is. So that is one easy way of like scoring in this multiple choice questions. Okay, so understand like what questions have been asked already. You have been taking 8 weeks worth quizzes. So this section will be more or less of the same type. All right, so number 1, recall questions, all right, which already has been asked. Number 2, there'll be some factual questions. First of all, good news is this: there will be no questions on dates of authors, dates of texts, or dates of publication. That won't be there. So you do not have to like sit down and learn certain dates of texts by heart. All right, so that is the good news. But what do we mean by factual questions? Maybe there'll be a painting given and you will be asked who the painter is. So there'll be 4 options you have to choose. So just go through those weeks where Professor Nayar is talking about the paintings. Say, for example, at least, okay, here's a hint. At least one question will be on visual text. So at least one painting will be there. All right, so there you go. All right, so that's a big hint for you. All right, so know who is the author of what. For example, if I tell you Caleb Williams, who is the author of Caleb Williams? So you have to choose William Godwin from the answer. All right, so those kind of factual questions. What other factual questions can we have? There will be, about the secondary texts on each of the transcripts, and after each of the lessons, there are some secondary readings given. Whether you have read it or not, that's a different thing. If you have listened to the lectures properly, you will know that those secondary readings, there will be certain terms that will pop up. For example, what is romantic Orientalism? So once those terms are given to you, you have to break those down and think with how it is applicable to a certain text, which will be one of those options. All right, so for example, romantic Orientalism, and there will be a couple of options like, is it Mary Shelley's Frankenstein? Is it William Hodges' Grammar? So you have to choose which one actually fits with those secondary critics. All right, what other factual questions can we expect? Terms. There are literary terms and cultural terms that have been referred to throughout the 8 weeks, right? For example, what is a depopulation narrative? If we are talking of disease as a theme, what is a depopulation narrative? Will the last man, Mary Shelley's Last Man, will that be considered a depopulation narrative? So there's nothing to think about whether you know these answers or you don't. So those are the things that I mean by factual questions. Subtitles of novels, right? There are several novels which have subtitles. For example, what is the subtitle for Mary Shelley's Frankenstein? We all know about Frankenstein, but the subtitle is The Modern Prometheus. So there might be a question on a particular text, and you have to choose the correct subtitle, right? Caleb Williams, like I'm talking about the same text, so you get the idea of what these questions are. Another thing I want to tell you, all the things that I'm suggesting right now, these might not be on the exam. This is not about feeding answers to you. All right, these are just the examples. So if you have any other questions, do ask me. All right, so what we have covered so far, we have recall questions, which will be similar or the same ones from the quizzes that you have taken. There'll be these kind of factual questions, no dates, but terms, authors, painters, ideas, concepts. So these will be there. And then there'll be 1 or 2 questions at the most, which will be conceptual questions. What do I mean by conceptual questions? There'll be some application based things, right? You might be given an excerpt or a painting, right? And you have to interpret certain things there. If a painting is given and suppose there is a gun in the painting, right? In a picturesque landscape, there is a gun. And if you go through your lectures, you will know which painting I'm talking of, right? Gainsborough's painting. So what is that gun doing there? There might be a question on that. Does this imply violence, or does this imply the question of property, or does this imply the question of gender? So you have to pick and choose according to your interpretation. You will know that, okay, in this picturesque landscape, if there is a vast field and someone is standing there with a gun, it is a question of property. All right, absolutely. I think someone actually posted this. Yes, absolutely, it's a question of property. So those are the things that I mean by conceptual questions. Or you will be given an excerpt, 4 lines of a poem perhaps, right? And what you make out of it, again, there will be 4 options given. You have to pick and choose. All right, so again, one more time, summarizing this first section, there'll be 10 MCQ questions, 2 marks each. There'll be recall questions, there'll be some factual questions, and there'll be conceptual questions. All right, any question on that? Any doubts so far before we move on to the next section? Is everyone on board? Is everything clear so far? We will come to the short notes, yeah. Okay, I'll move on then. All right, so this goes for 20 marks of your question paper. Now comes in the second section. The second section will be worth another 20 marks. Let me read this question. No, for the multiple choice, all the 10 questions will be mandatory. There are no choices. There are no options there. All right, so for the multiple choice, there will be 10 questions. You have to attempt all 10 questions. All right, okay, so now the next section will be another 20 marks, which are the short notes. A couple of you have already asked these questions, short notes. Now we'll come to that. So you have to write, you have to write 2 short notes answers. All right, here there will be options. 5 questions will be given, 5 terms will be given. I'll tell you how to write the terms, how to write on the terms, but there'll be 5 questions. You have to attempt only 2 of them. Each of them will be 10 marks worth. All right, so 10 plus 10, 20 marks. There'll be 5 options. You have to pick only 2. There are ample options for the short notes. All right, it's more than 50% choice you're getting here. All right. Word limits. Now the question that has been coming up repeatedly, word limit. There'll be a cap of 200 words. All right, it's not long enough, 10 marks each, but 200 words are enough for that. Okay. Yes, romantic imperialism. Absolutely. So that is one of those terms, right? Terms, concepts, ideas, right? What is the major term that we associate with Wordsworth, for example? What was the major contribution? Right, I mean, like, he's talking about nature, he's talking about empire, he's talking about several things, the discharged soldier. But one thing that we always keep in mind in the larger rubric of things, we know pantheism, that all nature is one, there is a presence of God in nature, all the universe is one, and that is called pantheism, right? Go to your lectures and figure out, when there are Professor Nayar's lectures on Wordsworth, figure out where he mentions this, what are the examples. All right. Say, for example, pantheism. So if this term is there as one of the questions, 3 things you have to do. All right. Listen to this very carefully. 3 things, and that's it. 200 words, you don't have to write a lot. Only 3 things you have to do. Identify where the term comes from. So if there is a question on pantheism or probably negative capability, if there's a question on negative capability, you know, okay, this comes from Keats. John Keats is coming up with the term negative capability. Wordsworth is associated with pantheism. Coleridge is associated with the distinction between 2 kinds of imagination, the primary imagination, the secondary imagination. Like, these will be as easy as that. I mean, like, if you are hearing these examples, you know already. You don't have to go through several kinds of rigorous preparation for these terms have been repeated over and over again throughout the 8 weeks, right? Coleridge's the 2 kinds of imagination, right? Enclosure, the question of property, again, someone just put it on the chat. So what is an enclosure? What is John Clare saying about enclosure? These are already on your quizzes, by the way, right? 3 things you have to do. Number 1, identify the term, where it comes from, who the author is or who it is associated with. Number 2, explain, give something close to a definition of the term. What do you mean by pantheism? What do you mean by primary imagination, secondary imagination? Again, it's a very easy thing. No one will ask you to quote verbatim what a definition is. All right. No one will ask you to define that term and I will sit with a dictionary and like, look, no, nothing like that. All right. You have to just explain the term, right? Kind of. Yes, Sahil, you're right. It's kind of reference to a context, but very pointed reference. You can't just broadly say, oh, this is about Wordsworth and say nothing else. No, you have to point out what pantheism is about, right? So that is the second part. The final thing, if applicable, give examples, right? So for example, if you can think of a quote or if you can think of a poem, then you can actually point that out. And again, you don't have, this is not an essay question. You don't have to write a lot on that. Just write 1 or 2 lines on what that term can be exemplified with. All right. So 3 things you have to write. Point out, identify, recognize where the term comes from. Number 2, what did I just say? Now I forget. Okay. Yeah. Number 2, explain the term, elaborate on the term. And number 3, you have to give an example, 1 or 2 examples, if it is applicable. If not, there's no need. All right. Is that clear? Is the short notes clear? All right. Sahil just put something like about examples. What do you mean? Could you elaborate on that? I don't get your question right here. Okay, if there are other questions, like do post it. Okay, I will read them like from time to time. I'm seeing the yeses, so I'll move on. All right, so 20 marks for multiple choice questions. The second section is 20 marks. 2 questions you have to attempt for short notes out of 5 options given to you. Sal, I'm still not getting what you mean by inter content or outer content. If you want, you can unmute yourself and ask the question. Example of pantheism, yeah. I mean, take any excerpt from Wordsworth's poems, where is like talking about all nature being one, right? The poem Nutting is a good example. Tintern Abbey is a very good example. I mean, you take any example. Enclosure, again, an example is like John Clare. There was a question in the last couple of weeks, I think, on the quiz as well, right? These are the examples. Or you could take an example of a painting as well. Constable's paintings, they always have enclosures, right? I mean, the fences, all the fences that divides like the large field. So you can like think about it, go through, keep your calm, everything you know. You just have to think of how to put those things on the paper. All right. Oh, now I get what Sahil you're talking of. Yeah, absolutely. You can bring in examples from outside the syllabus or like what hasn't been spoken about, but make sure they are from, I mean, they are pertaining to the course, right? It should be on British Romantic literature, right? I mean, don't bring in something like Margaret Atwood or like Vikram Seth or anything like that. They are not related to romantic literature. So make sure you bring in those. I mean, like, it's a huge gamut. So there are only so many we can actually talk about in a course, right? So if you know about other poems or other texts which hasn't been spoken of in terms of romantic literature, please go ahead. I mean, like, you're most welcome to give those examples. Thank you. That was a good question, Sahil. Yeah, finally I got you. All right, so 10 questions for multiple choice, all mandatory. 2 questions you have to attempt for short notes, which are, you'll be given 5 options, you have to choose 2. All right, if there's no other question on these, we will go ahead to our last and most heavy section. Yeah, I don't see any other questions right here. Okay, so the final section, this will be the long answer. This is like what many of you have called, quote unquote, the subjective question. Everything is subjective, but yes, I mean, this will be the long questions, the essay questions. All right, the word limit on these will be around 750 words to 1000 words. All right, that will be the maximum cap. If you write too less, then you might need to revisit and think of what else you can add. It's the tactics of writing a long essay type questions. If you're writing 300 words, that's not enough, right? But then again, if you're writing 700 words and then you're like, oh my God, I haven't reached 1000 words, don't write extra stuff just because you need to, right? Give it an average of 700, 750 words, around 800 words is like good, a pretty good answer. All right, as long as there is material. I mean, volume is like immaterial as long as there is matter in the answers. Okay, so keep that in mind. Just writing pages after pages doesn't earn you points. All right, so what will be these? Okay, the format. Again, like the short notes, there'll be 5 essay questions given, 5 questions asked. You have to choose only 2. All right, and each of the questions will be 30 marks each. So pay attention to these. This is the heaviest section. So like 30, 30, 60 marks will be on these 2 questions. So you have to manage your time. Make sure you have enough time to think about, take notes, and write down those answers. All right. So 5 questions will be given. You have to choose only 2 and attempt those 2, 750 to 1000 words each. All right. What will these questions look like? There will be one simple pattern for these questions. Each question will give you a prompt. Those prompts will be based on ideas, themes, issues, concepts. It could be anything. All right. No, Krati, we will not actually feed you sample questions. Like these discussions, I will give you some examples, what kind of things to actually expect. But I won't feed you like direct questions that, I mean, like, I won't give you like something like a question bank or something like that. All right, I will like that's what I'm doing right now. I will break down how these questions will look like. So there'll be a prompt given to you. And from that prompt, you will be asked to elaborate on any one aspect of that prompt. And I will give examples in a moment. Just bear with me. All right. And write about 2 texts. 2 texts you have to write about. Preferably from what we have been discussing in around those themes. Okay. So there'll be a prompt given. You will have to elaborate on the prompt. And you have to basically you have to give 2 instances, right, from 2 different authors, 2 different painters, whatever you have. All right, just 2 of them. Now some examples. What could we actually expect? Larger, broader themes. We know we have been speaking about, like, the first couple of weeks of this course, we have been speaking about the environment, ecology, right, nature, the countryside, and these are the broader themes, right? So if there is a prompt on nature, or maybe the distinction between the countryside and the urban culture, the village versus the city. If there is a prompt that actually tells you or gives you a quotation that distinguishes between the country and the city, you will be asked to write about 2 texts that actually focus on either of these, either the city or the village. That's all that is required. What do you have to do? You have to elaborate on that distinction itself and then take 2 examples. Take William Blake's London, right? Yes, the text will have to be chosen by you. That's a very good question. We won't actually give you. We'll just ask you, we'll give the prompt, we'll ask you, choose 2 texts of your reading within the course, of course, right? So for this, I mean, if there's a question of urbanity, right? We all know, we have been speaking about, the romantic literature, romantic paintings, they're all about nature, blah, blah, blah. But no, there was like an entire gamut of literature and paintings which focus on the cities, right? Industrial revolution is happening around this time. So therefore, like, there are fugitives running into London. London is the main metropolis at that point of the world, and not only in Britain at that point, right? So you have to think about what you have read and pick 2 texts. I would always go with like 1 shorter text, 1 longer text, because it will be easier to write about. But it's completely up to you what you do. So William Blake's London, if I take, right, he's talking about disease, he's talking about the politics, he's talking about religion, but all of them are at the center of London itself. So that is one of the texts you could choose. What else can we take? We can think of Wordsworth's poems, right? Tintin Abbey. Will that work? No, that is all about the village itself. So what else actually depicts London, right? Godwin's texts. Go through your lectures, you will know Godwin's novels, they are often set in the metropolis itself, right? So there will be entire gamut of literature that you'll find. Absolutely, upon Westminster Bridge. I mean, that is perfectly. I mean, it is like one revelation of what London looks like in the early morning, right? When the factories are still asleep, right? But it is about to wake up, like the city is waking up. That's a very good example, Krati. Yes. So you have to think about what you have read, and the themes will be so broad in those prompts that there'll be many texts that you can actually pick from. All you have to do is 2 texts that you will need to reflect upon. All right. What other kinds of prompts can be there? There could be questions on gender, class. I mean, think of issues. We have spoken of gender, right? We have spoken of class, right? The empire. Then we have spoken of what else? Race, right? The entire canon of literature which has to do with slavery, the abolitionist movements, right? So that is about race. Question of property, someone mentioned a couple of minutes ago, right? There's a question of property as well, right? Which text? I mean, like Jane Austen is talking about like property in very subtle ways. So bring those things up, right? Yes, those are the themes. Yeah, absolutely. Like I see the kind of things that I'm seeing on the chat. I am actually confident that you guys will do really well in your exam. I mean, there's nothing to worry about. Okay. So we have spoken of themes like environment, ecology. What about the larger rubric? Like think of mind and matter, like across, like from the second week onwards, every lecture, if you notice, in some way or the other has to do with the perceiver and the perceived, right? The internal mind of the author, the poet, or the speaker in a particular text, versus how human beings are reflecting on or perceiving the world outside, right? The perceiver and the perceived. De Quincey is famously talking of that, right? Wordsworth always is doing that. He's always about like looking at things and looking at himself looking at things, right? Wordsworth is really self-reflexive always, right? Keats is talking in Nightingale about like it's not the ode to a nightingale, like as Professor Nayar has pointed out, it is not exactly about the bird itself. It is about oneself looking at that bird, right? So there are all these kind of elements that you'll find under the rubric if there is a prompt on the mind and the world, or the the perceiver and the perceived world, the mind and nature. These are the things that you can pick from, right? Everything. I mean, like, go back to your lectures and you will see, like, second week onwards, repeatedly this question comes back over and over again across every genres. All right. What other, we have spoken of mind and the world, we have spoken of themes, we have spoken of issues. Let's think of ideas and genres as well. There could be prompts in terms of genres. I mean, know what a sentimental novel is, know what a gothic narrative is, right? Know what a slave narrative is, right? What is the difference between a slave narrative, like in terms of a novel, like say, or a memoir, like Mary Prince, the text of Mary Prince? It has been mentioned. It's a very short text. If you have read it, you have read it. Otherwise, you know about it. Versus Robert Burns's slavery poems, right? So I mean, those are genres, but mostly I would say focus on the themes like environment, ecology, urbanity, science. That is something you have to actually like note, right? The first science fiction novel debatably was born in the Romantic period, right? Mary Shelley is often spoken of as the first science fiction writer, right? So what kind of science? On looking at Chapman's Homer by Keats, it is about science, it is about astronomy, right? Geology, astronomy. You have the medical sciences, of course. I mean, like Frankenstein is all about that. Surgery, right? So these are the broader themes. I mean, if there's a question on science, there might be a question on science. So know which texts are talking about science in which ways. All right. So that is one thing. Then the issues, as I said, gender, class, race, property, institutions like marriage and church, right? Jane Austen is like the best example if there's a question on marriage, right? And I mean, she is talking of several ways. She is like not very happy with how because it's again goes back to the question of gender, right? Blake is Blake, Percy Shelley, all of these people, they are going against the church and the military and regimentation of society as well, right? So there are all these kind of things. Again, to sum it up before I take some more questions, there'll be 2 questions that you have to attempt out of 5. Prompts will be given, which will be based on themes or issues or ideas, genres, institutions. You have to elaborate on that, give like maybe 100-word description or your thoughts on that, and then dedicate the entire 752,000-word essay into 2 parts. Take 2 texts, read them closely, analyze them. All right. Most good answers will show the reader how you have analyzed those things. Just mentioning, oh, like Wordsworth's Tinton Abbey does not work. You have to show which portion, what is Wordsworth saying there. There was a question I had seen like on the form that you had submitted, whether quotes will be necessary. Ideally, if you can remember some quotes, that will be great. If not, there will be no penalty at all. This I am vouching. As long as you can give me the right things from the right texts, you are fine. No one expects you to remember every little thing with every punctuation. All right. Quotes, if you can remember quotes from texts, great. If not, that is fine, but you have to give some basic details about what you are saying and from what you are referring certain things to. All right, so that's all that is required. You can't just drop a name and then go ahead, right? You have to give me specifics. But if it is not exact quotation from a particular page or a particular line in a poem, that is perfectly fine. All right. Okay, I'll just quickly go through and see. There are a couple of questions probably I have missed. Apart from that, is there any other questions? Do tell me. Okay, typos, typing errors, punctuations and spelling mistakes. If it is one or two things in a long answer, I mean, like, no, I mean, there won't be any marks deducted for that. All right, but if the entire thing, every line is grammatically incorrect, or I can't understand anything, like if people don't understand what you're writing, I mean, that's a very different thing, because in that case, marks will not be given in the first place, right? It's not about marks deduction. But typos, that's fine. We are all human beings, and this is not a question on, I mean, there's not a course on typewriter practice, right? So we will make some mistakes, that is perfectly fine. All right. But as I said, if every line has grammatical and spelling mistakes, then there is something to worry about. The word count thing, I think you should ask the administration. If there is someone here, could you just help me answer that? Like how the word count will be on the screen? This is a logistical question. I'm not very sure about how there will be the word count as a maximum cap. Just post this question online on the discussion forum and someone will get back to you. But do understand there will be the maximum cap. If like you can't write more than 1,000 words in the thing. All right, what other questions did I miss? How marking will be done, like if we are able to justify the theme? Yeah, I mean, it will be like a holistic kind of a marking, right? As long as you like elaborate on like what the prompt is about. If there's a question on science, right? If you are giving me certain what do you call milieu within which science is produced at that point, geology is taking gaining momentum at that point. Mary Shelley is writing about electricity and chemistry and the medical science, surgery, right? If you're setting that up, that theme itself, that is good enough. That's number one. Then mostly the marks will be Sahil had a question about theory-based question. See, there is nothing called theory-based question as such. To think about it, all questions will be theory-based, right? Your example is a good one. There might be a question on the printing press, but as I said, I mean, there won't be anything so specific. So again, let me go back to the larger rubrics. I mean, there's the question of themes. So environment, ecology, urbanity. Oh, the distinction between the picturesque and the sublime. Right? That is something you have to think of. We have repeatedly been talking about in the quizzes as well as the lectures, right? So these are the themes, basically. Science, right? And you will be asked to choose what kind of science you're writing about, what kind of attitude towards the environment you're writing about, and then take two texts. Those are the themes. Issues, the question of race, gender, property, like economic crisis. Ideas and genres, a sentimental novel, the gothic novel, slave narrative, what is a lyric versus an ode, picturesque, the sublime. So these are the larger things. There will be nothing specific towards, okay, what are the magazines which are which actually saw the light of day, like during the Romantic period, because of the boom of the printing press. There won't be something as specific as that. If you want to bring that in, it is up to you. All right, let me just check other questions. Okay, I think more or less we have covered everything. I don't think this is a pen and paper exam at all. Just look at your announcements, and if you have registered, see, like, look at your emails. I think the entire thing is on screen. I don't think you have to write anything like with a pen and paper at all. This is like, yeah, that is the thing I will talk about. Thank you, Sahil. Once again, the question of time management. Okay, that is the last thing I will wrap up with. Yeah, precisely. Type the answers, and therefore there was this question just 2 minutes ago, right? If there are typing errors, so there is nothing with a pen on paper at all. So yeah, be prepared, like, know about what the medium of the exam is. I mean, these things are important. Don't be surprised on Sunday. All right, okay, time management. The 10 questions, the first section, 10 mandatory questions, multiple choice questions, I would say do not take more than 20 minutes, right? 2 minutes per question is more than enough, I would say. All right, like half an hour, absolutely fine, but don't take more than that, right? And they are like straightforward questions. As I said, the recall questions, you won't take more than 30 seconds. If you know your quizzes, you know what the answers will be, right? Yeah, there'll be the multiple. Okay, so I'm seeing these repeated questions. I don't know whether you joined late or not. I have covered all these actually. If there is a recording of this, you can just go back and read. Otherwise, all the format of the questions is on the announcement page on the course website. Okay, I mean, like, those of you who came late, haven't seen this, like, just go to the discussion, the announcements page. You will find the detailed breakdown of the things. Okay. Okay, so I would say not more than 20 to 30 minutes for the 10 MCQ questions. Just quickly answer those things. Those are just selecting options, right? Just understand, but do not rush. Okay, understand the questions, answer those. 10 questions gone, 20 marks just taken care of. Short notes, 200 words each. It's not much. Three things you have to identify, as I said: identify the term, uh, explain what it means or define what it is, and one or two examples. And you don't have to elaborate on those examples. Just, unlike the long questions, you just give me the text and we will understand. All right, so that, I would say, 200 words each. Like, I would say take another 40 minutes, 20 minutes each probably, right? And that should be more than enough, I would say. And then dedicate the rest for your long questions, right? At least like half an hour each or 40 minutes each. All right, you will have enough time. I mean, like, to think about it, apart from two long questions, you have two short notes and just multiple choice, right? So it wouldn't be difficult at all. If you have been paying attention throughout the 8 weeks, if you have been taking your quizzes, this will not be a difficult exam at all. And if you have been paying attention to all the suggestions I gave right now, it should be a pretty easy exam, that I can vouch for. Okay, I don't have anything else to add. If you have questions, give me. On the other hand, there are these questions, as I said at the beginning itself, these logistics questions. I won't be, and I should not answer these at all. Clashing with a set exam. I mean, I'm not the person to answer those kind of things. I mean, talk to the administration and figure out where you're registering, how many days it'll take for the result to come. Another logistical question. I mean, just keep an eye out. If these are pressing questions, just put it on the discussion forum. We will get back to you. All right. Anything about the exam itself or the course itself, just ask me, because this, and again, like, this is not the end of it. For the next 2 or 3 days, if you think of other questions, post it on the discussion forum. There will be people to answer those. I don't understand this question on assignments and practical assignment. I don't know if there is something I haven't covered. You can actually unmute yourself and ask. I will try to understand what you mean there. Everything will be from the lectures, and I mean there will be nothing outside. Even the conceptual questions, nothing will be from outside the course outline, which goes without saying.
Good evening, sir.
Hi.
Hi, sir. So I'm asking us that we get questions from our assignments and practical assignments we are doing now, no, sir?
Sorry,
So we'll
could
get
you
any
say it
chance?
again?
No, sir. We are doing our assignments and practical assignments, no, sir. We'll get questions from that, or we'll get from the lessons only, sir.
There'll be, for multiple choices, as I was saying, there will be 1 or 2 questions which will be repeated from the quizzes. I mean, those are the recall questions. There'll be 1 or 2 questions, but mostly things will be from the lectures itself.
Okay, sir.
Right.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
There won't be anything that is like unknown to you. See, the point of the exam is not to like put you in a difficult position. Understand that. All that you know, all that you have been hearing about, if there are certain things which are actually um, like coming up repeated, pay attention to those and you should be fine, right? For the short notes, as I said, I mean, if you know Coleridge, you know that he is most famously known to distinguish between 2 kinds of imagination. If you know Wordsworth, you know about pantheism. If you know Keats, you know he's talking of negative capability, right? The way a poet approaches certain themes, right? If you know about Percy Shelley, you know he famously said in his defense of poetry that poets are the unacknowledged legislatures of the world. What does unacknowledged legislator mean? So these are the things that you need to just keep in mind, and these have been repeatedly coming in the lectures or the quizzes. So there won't be anything to put you in a bad spot. Just if you have been paying attention through the lectures and taking the quizzes, you should be fine.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
No problem. That's why I'm here to help, right? Okay, I think we have gone way beyond time. It's time to wrap up, but I'll still give another 2 minutes for you to think of any other questions that you'll have. Hmm. Yeah, Sahil, and Professor Nair is like super busy at this point, so he couldn't actually attend the session. But yeah, I can see the sad face, but yeah, I mean, it is what it is, right? But he sends all his best wishes to you all. Mm. No, Hema, there won't be any revision classes or anything like that. So, as I said, if you have any other questions, I mean, there might be questions. Don't hesitate. Just drop those questions on the discussion forum. Um, the discussion forum is a very good platform to use, actually, right? And like I always do reply all. So, one person asks a question. If I reply, several others might have the same question. They get answered as well, right? So use that. I mean, like you should have used it more, I mean, throughout the course. But anyway, in the next couple of days, as you said, there won't be revision classes or anything like that. If you want, ask those questions and I will get back to you. All right. Is there any other question or doubt or concern? Okay, then I think we can wrap up. All right. Thank you, everyone. Can we stop the live chat then? Or am I just to sign out? Okay. Take care, everyone. Bye.